Coincidence was the only logical explanation for how four men, each grappling with infidelity in their marriages, found themselves at the same upscale bar in a Washington, D.C. suburb on a fateful afternoon. Perhaps fate intervened, recognizing their generally virtuous lives and the unjust predicaments they found themselves in. Jack, a 30-year-old medical researcher for NIH, arrived at the Gold Coast around 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, unable to focus on his work due to the impending confrontation with his wife, Audrey, about her affair. Sipping on a Devil's Cut Jim Beam bourbon, he sought solace in the dimly lit bar, occupying a secluded table far from the bustling bar area. His brooding demeanor caught the attention of Tom, a 35-year-old government lawyer navigating the fallout of his wife Amy's infidelity. Seeking refuge from his troubles, Tom joined Jack, ordering 2 shots of añejo tequila from Amber, the empathetic cocktail waitress. Shortly before 3 o'clock, Stan entered the bar, visibly agitated and towering over the other patrons. Despite his imposing stature, Stan exuded a sense of vulnerability as he nervously settled at a table near the entrance. Unlike Jack and Tom, Stan's appearance hinted at a physically demanding occupation, reflected in his muscular frame and attire. Opting for a pitcher of PBR, Stan's request was met with Amber's friendly apology, as the bar lacked the requested brew but offered Heineken as an alternative. As the afternoon unfolded, these 4 men found themselves united by their shared struggles, seeking refuge and camaraderie in the midst of their personal turmoil. "Looks like I'm stuck with Dutch horse piss," Stan grumbled, signaling his frustration by tapping his fingers on the table and tapping his boot on the floor. At around 3 p.m., Will, a stout man in his early 50s, entered the bar, his expensive attire contrasting with his despondent demeanor. Displaying his luxurious watch, Will ordered a rare Glenfiddich from Amber, catching the attention of the other patrons who were unaware of the drink he requested. Amber, a sophisticated and outgoing cocktail waitress, engaged with the 4 men as she served their drinks, sensing their shared marital troubles. Recognizing their somber expressions, Amber discreetly facilitated a connection among the men, recognizing their common problem of marital discord. When it was Tom's turn for another tequila, Amber encouraged him to join Jack at his table, subtly suggesting that misery loves company. Though initially hesitant, Tom acquiesced, realizing Amber's well-intentioned effort to bring the men together. As Amber placed Tom's drink on Jack's table, the men began to realize the unexpected bond forming among them, thanks to Amber's intervention. Tom reluctantly made his way over to Jack's table, where they exchanged introductions and engaged in an awkward conversation. Jack, having consumed more alcohol than Tom and feeling less inhibited, initiated the conversation by remarking on their shared dismal appearance and speculated whether they were facing similar problems. Within 10 minutes, Amber convinced Will to join the conversation, and he was warmly greeted by Tom and Jack. Curious about Will's choice of drink and impressed by his expensive watch, they soon found themselves conversing freely with him. Amber encountered some difficulty persuading Stan to join the group due to his different attire and drink choice. Offering him a complimentary pitcher of beer, she successfully coaxed him to join the trio, positioned between Will and Tom. By 4:45 p.m., as other customers began arriving, the 4 men, now near drunk, had opened up about their marital problems and engaged in friendly banter about whose situation was the most dire, engaging in a bit of one-upmanship. As Will and Jack needed to leave for their own reasons, it seemed best for Stan to depart as well. However, before parting ways, Will proposed an idea to the group. Each member would present their problem to a panel of impartial individuals, and the others would assist in rectifying the situation of the member deemed to have the worst predicament. Despite initial skepticism, Will argued that they each possessed unique abilities that could contribute to solving each other's problems. He offered to fund the endeavor and organize a meeting to formalize their agreement and discuss the details. Encouraged by Will's enthusiasm, the group agreed to proceed with the plan, exchanging contact information and agreeing to reconvene for a formal meeting on Saturday morning to further explore their proposed solution. "What do we do until then?" Jack inquired. "Maintain the status quo the best you can. You understand your wives better than I do. I'm not suggesting you act happy, but don't make any drastic moves either. Just pretend you're all award-winning actors," Will advised. They all shook hands and prepared to leave, each reaching for their wallets. "To show my good faith, and because I'm thrilled about this, let me cover your tabs," Will said, motioning for Amber to come over. And don't forget to tip our lovely catalyst, he added once she approached. Will settled the bill and handed Amber a $400 tip, $100 from each man. She received genuine hugs from each member of the group. It's refreshing to see you boys leave with determination in your eyes, or should I say stumble, she quipped. Tom made his way back to his nearby hotel room, while Jack and Stan opted for cabs home, and Will was picked up by his limo. None of them wanted a DUI to ruin their plans. The four collaborators convened at one of Will's suburban offices, a new 3-story brick building with the name Bronson Commercial Realty displayed prominently over the elegant cut-glass entrance. "Who's Bronson?" Stan innocently asked. "That would be me, William H. Bronson, Jr., Will replied with a smile. "I admit, I'm a bit vain, but this is the only one of my dozen businesses named after myself," he chuckled. After exchanging commiserations about the challenging past few days, with Will, Stan, and Jack still interacting with their wives, and Tom confined to his modest hotel room, only briefly visiting his daughters, they swiftly got down to business. Tom had prepared a contract per Will's instructions and had it saved on a memory stick for easy adjustments using Will's computers if needed. The contract outlined their agreement to present their respective situations to an impartial panel, with the worst-case scenario receiving the group's collective efforts to resolve it. They committed to brainstorming ideas and implementing agreed-upon solutions, provided they were legal. Each member also agreed to take up to 4 days off work if necessary and to diligently pursue assigned tasks. "We'll have no electronic communication except through these burner phones," Will declared as he distributed the devices after everyone had signed the contract. "I've programmed our burner phone numbers into each device, and they are strictly for calling each other. Each phone has $200 worth of prepaid minutes, which should be sufficient. What about selecting the panel to assess our presentations?" Tom inquired. "I've arranged for a principal from a polling firm to discuss that with us," Will replied. Just as he finished speaking, the doorbell rang. "Speaking of which, that must be him now," Will exclaimed, rising from his chair and rushing to answer the door. "Guys, I'd like you to meet Dr. Andrew Minton, a highly respected pollster," Will announced as he re-entered the conference room, accompanied by a tall, distinguished-looking man sporting a gray beard and wire-rimmed bifocals. "Please, call me Andy," Dr. Minton replied. After exchanging introductions and handshakes, Andy took his seat at the head of the table and inquired, "So, what can my small polling organization do for you gentlemen?" Tom provided a brief overview of their objectives and shared their respective situations. As Andy stroked his beard, deep in thought, Jack interjected, "What type of panel do you suggest, Andy?" "I believe a panel comprising around 20 adult males, no females, ranging in age from 25 to 50 would be suitable to hear the presentations. They would deliberate after each presentation and cast their votes. If no one receives a majority on the initial ballot, we'll eliminate the lowest-ranked presentation and conduct another vote until a majority decision is reached. I recommend a mix of married, single, and divorced individuals among the panelists," Andy explained. "I think we'd appreciate an insight into their voting decisions and the final tally as well," Stan asserted, with the others concurring. "How soon can you organize this, Andy?" Will inquired. "Would Wednesday at 10 in the morning at my office work for everyone? Each presenter will have 25 minutes for their presentation and Q&A session. Following lunch, the panel will convene, deliberate, vote, and provide a written summary. You should have the results by 3 o'clock, for at the latest," Andy proposed. Everyone agreed to the plan. Jack, Tom, and Stan departed, leaving Will to negotiate financial terms with Andy. On Wednesday, Andy informed them that the panel comprised 21 heterosexual men, including 15 married, 4 divorced, and 2 single individuals. The age range spanned from 24 to 47. Using a deck of cards, Andy had each member of the quartet draw lots to determine the presentation order. Each presenter would address the panel alone, while the other 3 observed from a viewing room through a one-way mirror. They would have a minimum of 15 minutes to present their case, followed by a Q&A session lasting 10 to 15 minutes. The order coincidentally mirrored their arrival at the Gold Coast: Jack, Tom, Stan, and finally Will. Remember, no personal names, neither yours nor your spouse's or children's if applicable. You'll be identified simply as presenter number 1 through number 4. Despite confidentiality agreements, it's best to minimize identifying information, Andy reminded them, receiving nods of agreement from all. The last place I want to be is here, bearing my soul, Jack commenced his address, but I'm at a loss and need to take action. Thank you for listening. I'm presenter number 1. Jack proceeded to recount how he discovered that his wife, Audrey, had been engaging in extramarital affairs for an indeterminate period, likely since shortly after the birth of their 3-year-old child. She had been frequenting local college campuses or male-dominated conferences to engage in one-night stands or occasional repeat encounters. Although he suspected she insisted on condom use, he couldn't confirm it and had only recently obtained concrete evidence. Have you noticed any change in your sexual relationship or affection since discovering her infidelity? Panelist number 4 inquired. No, there's been no change at all. That's probably why I remained oblivious until stumbling upon her activities accidentally, Jack responded. You mentioned her transformation after childbirth. Did this coincide with her change in behavior? Panelist number 19 asked. Yes, after our daughter was born, Audrey initially struggled with her body image, but then she became more physically active and regained confidence in her appearance. Our sexual encounters became more frequent and passionate until I discovered her betrayal, Jack explained, his emotions beginning to surface. How was she so successful in attracting partners, especially younger ones? Panelist number 6 wondered. She's physically attractive, tall, with a well-endowed figure and striking features, Jack replied with a mix of longing and resignation. What frequency do you estimate her affairs occurred? Panelist number 14 probed. I'd say about once every 2 weeks, Jack murmured, his voice barely audible before repeating himself more audibly. What's your current situation with her? Panelist number 1 inquired. She senses something's amiss. Although we've been intimate a couple of times since I found out, it's not the same. I've been avoiding confronting her directly, but she's aware something's wrong, Jack confessed, visibly emotional. Thank you, presenter number 1, Andy interjected, glancing at his watch. That concludes your presentation. Please send in number 2. Jack exited the panelist chamber and returned to the observation room, where Tom was already waiting to enter. They exchanged hugs before Tom entered the jury room. Hi, I'm presenter number 2, Tom began nervously. Despite being an attorney, he wasn't accustomed to public speaking, but his pain and anger drove him forward. Tom recounted returning early from a business trip to find a man leaving his house, a situation he described as almost comically cliché if it weren't so tragic. Bursting into the bedroom, he confronted his wife, Amy, who was naked on their bed with another man's semen visible. Despite his shock, Tom attempted a wry smile at his own gallows humor. He described Amy's calm admission of her year-long affair with a man named Jeremy and her intention to continue it. She threatened Tom with withholding sex and warned him against pursuing divorce, promising a bitter legal battle for custody of their daughters. Her final offer of intimacy came with the condition that Tom accept the situation. Does anyone else know about her affair? Panelist number 2 asked hesitantly. I don't believe so. Jeremy is married and a colleague of hers, so there's an incentive for secrecy. I've discreetly inquired among her friends and family, but haven't found any indication that they know, Tom replied solemnly. What's your current situation? Andy inquired. I left the house immediately, only returning briefly to collect belongings and spend time with my daughters away from the tension at home, Tom explained. Have you had any discussions with your wife since you left? Panelist number 21 inquired. She's called me twice. The first time, she was pleasant but firm. The second time, just yesterday, she told me to stop avoiding reality and come home because the girls and her parents were asking questions. She threatened divorce, citing abandonment, Tom replied, avoiding eye contact with the panelists. Would divorce be so bad? Panelist number 8 asked innocently. She's the mother, the kids are young and female, and she would fight for sole custody. It would ruin my life, Tom responded, wiping away tears. Thank you, presenter number 2, Andy said softly. Please send in number 3. With his head down, Tom exited the room, nearly bumping into Stan, who was waiting just outside. Sorry, Stan said, placing his hands on Tom's shoulders. I couldn't bear to listen anymore. I've been waiting here for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Tom nodded and returned to the viewing room as Stan entered the panelists' room. Stan's imposing presence and dramatic entrance caught the panelists off guard. He apologized for his abrupt manner, explaining the turmoil he was experiencing. If your story is anything like the other two, we understand. Please proceed, presenter number 3, Andy said. Though not as articulate as Tom and Jack, Stan's sincerity shone through as he recounted his situation. Discovering his wife Joyce's long-term affair with a mutual acquaintance was a painful blow. What hurt even more was that many people, including family and friends, were aware of the affair but kept it from him. Stan revealed that his wife had deceived him into giving her cash, which she used to rent motel rooms with her lover. When asked if he had confronted her, Stan shared that he had not yet done so. No, and I must explain why. In the past, I struggled with anger management issues. I underwent counseling and have been successful in controlling it for several years. However, I'm angrier now than ever before. I fear that when I confront my wife, she might say something that triggers my rage, and I might end up harming her lover or even her. I'm a strong man, and even a minor blow from me could be fatal, landing me in jail for life, Stan disclosed, concluding with a heavy sigh. Do you have children? Panelist number 1 inquired further. Fortunately, no, Stan replied. Has your sexual relationship with your wife deteriorated? Panelist number 1 asked. Stan exhaled deeply. According to my sources, she's been involved in this affair for about 6 months. Around that time, her interest in intimacy did decline. However, since I found out about the situation 10 days ago, I haven't been in the mood for intimacy. Surprisingly, she initiated sex with me twice during this period. I treated her with disdain, considering her actions, and it didn't seem to bother her. However, she's been cautious around me since then, sensing my efforts to control my anger. I tend to clench my fists when angry, and I accidentally destroyed a kitchen chair in a fit of rage, without providing a real explanation when she noticed the aftermath. Are you open to reconciliation? Panelist number 8 asked. I'm uncertain. Probably not, but I might consider it if we cut ties with everyone from our past. However, as the victim in this situation and the higher earner, I don't want to pay alimony for her infidelity, especially given its public nature, Stan replied, his face reddening. Thank you, presenter number 3, Andy said. Please send in presenter number 4. As Stan left the conference room, he struggled to maintain his composure. Sharing his troubles with strangers had agitated him more than he expected. He was surprised when Will hugged him in the viewing room, finding comfort in the gesture. Jack and Tom also offered their support, patting him on the shoulder. Will, known for his impeccable attire, had uncharacteristically removed his tie and loosened his collar while watching his friend's emotional presentations. Unlike Stan and Tom, Will was accustomed to delivering presentations to groups of people, and he had relaxed his attire accordingly. His demeanor during his presentation was also relaxed, lacking the intense passion displayed by the previous speakers. My situation stems from my family dynamics. I have relatives in public offices who uphold conservative Christian values, and my wife is exploiting this, Will began, pacing in front of the panelists. He proceeded to recount in excruciating detail how his young wife was engaged in affairs with 2 different men and would taunt him about it. She had even threatened to force him to watch one of her encounters, claiming it would serve as a learning experience for him. Additionally, she threatened to boycott important events unless he complied with her demands and watched her liaisons. Furthermore, she warned that if he pursued divorce and invoked their prenuptial agreement, she would falsely accuse him of encouraging her infidelity, supported by her lover's testimony. The panelists were visibly taken aback by Will's revelations. Eventually, panelist number 1, driven by curiosity, inquired about the potential harm to Will's family resulting from his wife's actions. I'm not willing to take that risk. Public perception can be unpredictable. While sympathy from the public might benefit my family, it could also backfire, Will conjectured. Moreover, it would irreparably damage my relationship with my family, who initially opposed my marriage to her, citing concerns about her motives and character, which unfortunately turned out to be valid. After Will concluded his presentation, Andy addressed the panelists, instructing them on the next steps. Following this, he entered the viewing room and found the four men looking somber. "That was undoubtedly a challenging experience for you all," Andy remarked sympathetically. "It was just as tough to watch as it was to speak," Jack groaned, expressing the sentiment shared by Stan, Will, and Tom. Andy then inquired about their preferences regarding the deliberation process and whether they wished to be present for the decision-making or receive the outcome later. "I'm emotionally drained," Tom admitted. "I couldn't bear to witness the deliberations." "I feel the same way," Stan nodded in agreement. "I'm not going to watch," Jack announced firmly. "Here's an idea," Will suggested. "If you guys trust me, why don't I stay until the deliberations are over? I'll decide later if I'm masochistic enough to watch, and then I'll call each of you with the results. We can discuss further when we meet next, and I'll provide you with the written comments from the panelists. How does that sound?" "I trust you completely, Will," Stan affirmed, rising from his seat to embrace Will in a heartfelt hug. "Count me in," Jack chimed in, joining Stan in expressing trust in Will. "Agreed," Tom concurred. After a light lunch of yogurt, as he had no appetite, Will ultimately decided to witness the deliberations. They turned out to be quicker but more agonizing than he had anticipated. The panelists unanimously acknowledged the gravity and unfairness of all four situations. They believed Jack had the best chance of improving his situation, with a possible glimmer of hope for Stan. However, they deemed Tom and Will's predicaments as seemingly hopeless, particularly Tom's due to his children. Some panelists thought Will's concerns were exaggerated and that he could easily end his relationship with his wife. After a concise 50-minute discussion, the panel reached a decision on the first ballot. Tom received 11 votes, Will 6, Stan 4, and Jack none. 3 panelists, along with Andy, drafted the results, while the rest of the panelists departed, visibly solemn and distressed. Will promptly informed his comrades of the outcome and arranged a meeting for Saturday morning to strategize on assisting Tom. True to his word, Will mobilized his resources, and the others pledged their support. Will arranged for a divorce attorney to brief them on family law intricacies, covering various topics from custody to protective orders, during a 2-hour session. Following the attorney's departure, they delved into detailed discussions over lunch. After thorough consideration, Tom concluded that he harbored no love or respect for his wife anymore and viewed divorce as inevitable. However, his primary concern was ensuring that Amy wouldn't gain sole custody of their children. "You're aiming too low," Jack asserted. "I've got an idea that could get you sole custody, no alimony, and child support from her." "I'm all ears," Tom responded skeptically. After an hour of brainstorming, all four were smiling. "We might just pull this off," Stan grinned. "Hell yeah!" Tom exclaimed, pumping his fist into the air. The next morning, Tom called Amy, informing her of his return home but clarifying that he would be sleeping in the guest bedroom. After bidding farewell to Jack, Will, and Stan, who were equally committed to the plan, Tom left to execute his part. "We mean business, guys. This is war," Jack declared as he shook both Will and Stan's hands before they departed. 6 days after devising their plan, and after extensive efforts by all involved, everything was set in motion. Amy and her lover Jeremy were caught in the act by Tom's daughters, prompting chaos and a confrontation. In the aftermath, the police were involved, and Amy's attempts to deceive them were swiftly undone by evidence provided by Tom. Jeremy faced questioning at the hospital, while Amy found herself in a precarious position due to her lies and the undeniable truth captured in the video footage provided by Tom. A CSI team collected blood samples from the floor and wall near the broken mirror and confiscated the sheets from the bed in the master bedroom. Amy was taken in for questioning and read her rights. Since lying to the police was against state law, including obstruction of justice, and she was also charged with child endangerment, she was held in jail over the weekend since there was no magistrate available to grant bail. After Amy's parents bailed her out on Monday, she was met by a process server at her front door and served with divorce papers and a temporary restraining order requiring that she stay clear of her children, husband, and house until a hearing could be held. A deputy accompanied her into the house to get some clothing, personal items, and her car keys. By the time that Wednesday rolled around, Amy's attitude had undergone a 360-degree change. She called Tom, who was happy to talk to her. "I don't know how you did it, but you got me, Tom. You win. What do you want?" "Why, Amy, honey, didn't you read the divorce papers? I want sole custody of the kids, child support, and you out of my life for good. I understand from Jeremy's wife that he'll soon be a free man, so the two of you should get together and have a nice shitty life," Tom replied, trying to sound as sarcastic as possible just before he hung up. Thursday, Will, Jack, and Stan met at Bronson Commercial Realty and conferenced Tom in by phone. Tom's daughters were having a hard time, and he was reluctant to leave them even with his parents, although his mom was staying with him to help out in getting them to school, etc. "Guys, I don't know how to thank you. I mean, you all treated it just like it was your problem and performed beautifully," Tom gushed. "Hey, that was the deal, dude," Jack replied with a big smile. "It was an honor to help. And don't forget that we have one more arrow in our quiver. Amy will shit a brick when the police inform her that the blood that they drew from her at the police station tested positive for HIV." All four laughed. "When are you going to tell her that the HIV test is a fake?" Jack asked Tom. "I'll never tell her it's a fake, but we'll be sure to somehow see that she's tested again after I get sole custody of the kids. I don't want to ruin her life like she has tried to ruin mine," Tom chuckled. "Amen," Stan laughed. "Those cameras, the emails to the kids' school and the part-time nanny, and that pieced-together phone message, all ostensibly from Amy's phone, were priceless, Stan, and here I thought that you were just a big dumb jock," Tom continued to gush. "Glad to ruin your stereotype, fella," Stan chortled. "And, to pay all those bucks, Will, wow," Tom said, his voice now starting to crack with emotion. "I'm a little distressed, though," Will replied, "on how easy it was for my associate to bribe someone at the police station to substitute the blood sample Jack got for us for Amy's. Well, even though that sucks, we must have done something right to get the bonus of the part-time nanny knocking the shit out of that asshole Jeremy," Will chuckled. "Did you know that Grandma was so fierce?" "Hell no," Tom replied. "But she's getting a raise, plus I'm going to make sure that I stay on her good side from now on." After the giddy quartet exchanged some more verbal backslaps, Tom got serious. "Listen, guys. I know that the deal was we would just handle the so-called winner's problem, but that's not fair. I think that we can handle all of them, one at a time, and we have to act now. We can't wait until my divorce is final. The badass attorney that Will got for me assures me that, given the circumstances, I'll get sole custody." "Do you have a plan, Tom?" Will asked. "Hell yeah, I do. It will take some physical pain on your part, Will, but it will end up with your wife in jail, one of her paramours disabled, and the other one willing to testify on your behalf. It does require Stan to do extra duty too. Are you up for it, big guy?" Tom replied. "I've had to take prescription drugs to calm myself down to keep from killing my wife and her friend," Stan responded with an edge to his voice. "I'd love to go off the drugs for a while and be able to vent my frustrations, that is assuming that you have a plan for me next, Tom." "That I do, Stan my boy, that I do," Tom snickered. "My mind has been working overtime for the last week, and I have plans for Jack too." "Okay, then," Stan bellowed. "Let's have it." At Bronson Commercial Realty, Saturday morning, 8 a.m., Tom related. "Gotcha," the other three remarked in unison. Will's wife, Julie, at the age of 28, 24 years younger than he is, didn't realize that her Tuesday liaison with Frank, her number 2 lover, in her alleged marital bed, was being filmed, with audio. Stan had seen to it that the cameras from Tom's house, which were no longer needed, were providing proof positive. Julie had apparently long since concluded that Will was a total wimp and that she had him by the gonads and could do anything with impunity. The cameras got a good view of her contorted face as she screamed when Frank jettisoned his cum grenades into her pulsating pussy. The audio also caught all of her post-coital badmouthing of Will and bragging about how she was sexually blackmailing him. When Stan viewed it to assess its quality, he was disconcerted by the video for several reasons. Obviously, Julie's blatant cheating was the most disconcerting feature. However, he was also unsettled by the effect viewing Julie had on him. She is one plasma hot woman, Stan mused as he ogled her sleek physique and ample bosom and marveled at her sexual intensity. Stan and Jack, in disguises, paid a visit to Frank on Wednesday. After Stan broke his nose, they had a talk with him. "You will testify against that woman, and you won't see her again," Stan barked. "Here's $10,000 in cash for your assistance, and you'll get another $10,000 when the situation is resolved, whether or not you are required to testify," Jack said as he handed over some of Will's money. "But if you support that woman or see her again, you're a dead man," Stan continued, hitting him in the solar plexus. "I got the message," Frank groaned from his knees. Thursday, once Julie's number one lover, Big Burly Justin, had gone up to her bedroom, Will talked into the transmitter that Stan had provided to check with Jack that things were progressing as planned. Jack, hiding in the copious closet on the opposite side of the bed from the entrance to the master bedroom in Will's mansion, quietly indicated affirmative. "Now remember, Will," Stan cautioned, "when you hear the beep, close your eyes and cover them with your arm." Will nervously nodded. Sensing the little man's apprehension, Stan grabbed him by the shoulders and continued, "You can do this, Will, it's going to work, and Jack and I have got your back." Will gave Stan a crooked smile. "I know that you do, Stan, I know you do." Will barged into his bedroom just before naked Julie and Justin were about to go at it. "Get the hell out of my house, asshole," Will yelled. "Are you talking to me, little man?" Justin barked. "Don't worry about him, honey," Julie laughed to Justin. "I'm glad he's here. I want him to watch and get some more pointers. After all, I do have the duty to have intercourse with my husband, occasionally." "I'll never watch you trample your marriage vows," Will whined. "I married you only for your money, little man. You have to know that by now. And if you don't do as I tell you, as I've instructed you before, I'm going to tell everyone who will listen, including your conservative Christian relatives, that you're a pervert and made me have intercourse with other men with you watching. Justin will back me up, won't you, honey?" Julie snickered as she gave Justin a kiss. "You bet, babe," Justin responded, returning her kiss. "I want you out of my house, asshole. I own this house, not her, and you're trespassing," Will squealed. "Rough him up a little, honey," Julie said to Justin. "Don't kill him, but let the little man know not to mess with us." "I warn you that I will defend myself," Will barked, less than convincingly. "Oh, you will, huh?" Justin said as he started slapping Will. Will tried to fight back, but then Justin punched him in the nose. Fortunately, Will, though prone, was not unconscious when he heard the beep, and he immediately closed his eyes and covered them with his arm. Justin thought that he was trying to cover up so as not to get hit in the face again and started laughing while simultaneously threatening Will with great bodily harm when suddenly intense lights came on and blinded both Justin and Julie. When Stan pushed the button on his remote, the cameras in the bedroom went off at the same time that the blinding lights went on. With protective eyewear on, Stan quickly entered the bedroom, put one of his strong arms around the neck of the disoriented and naked Justin, and with all of his might slammed Justin's body over his knee. The loud crack and Justin's piercing scream indicated that, as planned, Justin's back was broken. Stan looked over at the bed and saw that Jack had performed his duty, having bonked Julie on the head hard enough so that she was completely disoriented but not hard enough to knock her out. Once Stan saw that Jack had blindfolded Julie, Stan hit his remote again, and the blinding lights went out. Stan helped Will to his feet, offering words of encouragement. "You did great, dude. Sorry I didn't hit the remote sooner, but it'll make the scene even more convincing now." Removing his eye protection, Jack joined Will, expressing concern about his injuries. "Are you sure you can handle the next part? Justin hit you pretty hard, and your nose looks broken." "I want to stick to the plan, no matter the pain," Will groaned. "Did you bring the gun Julie bought with her personal credit card last week?" "Got it right here," Jack grinned, revealing a .25 caliber pistol from his back pocket. "Let's proceed," Will said, closing his eyes and raising his hands. Approaching Julie, who was blindfolded and groggy, Jack handed her the gun. "She's right-handed, right?" he asked. "No, left-handed," Will replied, briefly opening his eyes. With Will in position and the gun properly aligned in Julie's left hand, Jack pulled the trigger. The shot grazed Will's side, causing pain but no serious injury. "Ow, that hurts," Will moaned. Examining the wound, Jack confirmed it was superficial. "Looks perfect for the plan," he chuckled. "It'll bleed and leave evidence on the bullet." As Jack attended to Justin, who had passed out, and Julie lay on the bed in a daze, Will noticed Stan's gaze and realized his pants were tinted. "Been getting any action lately?" Will asked. "No, especially with my wife," Stan replied, embarrassed. Realizing his unintended arousal, Stan apologized and tried to leave. Grabbing Stan's arm, Will offered an unexpected suggestion. "Why don't you take advantage of the situation? I'm divorcing her anyway, and she won't be getting any after jail. Just be careful and use protection." "Wouldn't you mind?" Stan asked, surprised. "It'd be a favor," Will smiled. "Jack and I will handle the van. Just come downstairs when you're done, and I'll call 911. Stan approached the nightstand and found a condom, lube, and a thin vibrator. Dropping his pants, he revealed his 7.5-inch cock. With latex gloves on, he lubed up and fingered Julie's asshole while fingering her pussy with his other hand, eliciting moans from her. Once Julie's pussy was wet, Stan inserted the vibrator into her asshole. Julie groaned, showing signs of arousal despite being blindfolded. Stan intended to continue until she was unconscious. Lifting Julie's crotch with one arm, Stan thrust his cock into her slick pussy, causing her to flinch and gasp. Despite wearing a condom, the tight fit and Julie's excitement made the experience intense. Stan pounded her relentlessly, causing Julie to orgasm multiple times. As Stan neared climax, he turned the vibrator to high, leading Julie into another powerful orgasm while he filled his condom. Once satisfied, Stan turned off the vibrator, realizing Julie had become comatose. After a few more minutes, Stan removed himself and the vibrator, disposing of the condom and cleaning up. He removed Julie's blindfold, then met Will and Jack downstairs. "Hope you gave her a good one," Will joked, despite his injuries. "Best with a condom," Stan proudly announced. Leaving the house, Stan and Jack headed to the van while Will called the cops. 2 days later, the four friends reconvened at Bronson Commercial Realty, where Will shared the success of their plan despite his injuries. "Your plan was genius," Will praised Tom. Curious, Jack asked for the details of what happened after he and Stan left. The CSI team confirmed that the physical evidence matched my story that after I broke Justin's back I have real street cred now, Will chuckled. That after I broke his back, Julie pulled the gun she had purchased a few days before and shot me. The GSR on her dominant hand confirmed it. They believed that she got the bump on her head when despite being shot I charged her and her head hit the headboard of the bed. Her blood and hair were just where Jack put them. "Did you show them the video?" Stan anxiously asked. "Sure did," Will replied smugly. "It supported my story completely, and I was able to convince them that Justin punching me into the wall knocked out the cameras. Justin is now in the hospital's criminal ward in a body cast, handcuffed to his bed. He's been charged with assault, criminal trespass, and conspiracy to commit blackmail. Julie is in jail charged with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit blackmail, and has a $500,000 bond which for some reason no one has been anxious to post for her." After a good 15 minutes of further expressions of unmitigated joy, Tom got serious. "Okay, guys, back to the real world. Stan, I have a completely scorched earth plan for you. Are you game, or do you want to tone things down?" "I want the biggest shitstorm in the history of mankind," Stan declared, slamming his fist on the conference room tabletop, shaking almost the entire room. "Don't break my table, dude," Will laughed. "Sorry," Stan joked, "but I am through with my wife Debbie and everyone who knows about her affair. In the last few weeks, I've gotten many sly smiles and snickers behind my back, and I can't take it anymore. I will take revenge unless I get some really sweet revenge." Tom grinned evilly. "I think what I have in mind might be too intense for you," he sneered. "Try me," Stan retorted. After Tom explained his plan, Will and Jack grimaced. "Oh, gross," they moaned in unison. "Even I can't successfully execute what you want with the emails and texts without getting caught," But I know a guy who lives on the fringes of the law who could. It will cost Will, though, Stan said. Money is not an issue. My expenditures implementing our plans are the best money I've ever spent in my life. Also, one of the facilities that I am a silent partner in and needs to be remodeled anyway is a perfect place to host Tom's proposed event, Will gleefully replied, wincing as too much movement hurt his side with the bullet wound. Dudes, I don't mind smearing cum in pussies with a latex-gloved hand, but there is no way that I want to cause guys to ejaculate by sticking my fingers up their assholes and touching a membrane bordering their prostates, Jack said, grimacing. Out-of-town prostitutes will take care of that, Will added. Only money is necessary because I'm not getting involved in that either. But can you get enough nitrous oxide, Jack? No problem, Jack grinned. But we'll have to mix it with a little desflurane to achieve the desired effect. That shouldn't be an issue. A week later, Stan's wife Debbie, along with her family and friends, including her lover Trent and his family, gathered in a private lounge to celebrate Trent's upcoming birthday. Unbeknownst to them, the room had been sealed, and Jack, disguised as the bartender, had left the area. After about 5 minutes of the nitrous oxide with desflurane flowing into the room, the guests began to succumb to the anesthesia. Stan, watching the events unfold on a closed-circuit TV, directed his team, all wearing gas masks, to enter the room. With the assistance of out-of-town prostitutes, Stan, Tom, and Jack worked quickly. They stripped the unconscious guests, induced ejaculation in the men by stimulating their prostates, and then manipulated the fluids to incriminate each other sexually. Debbie received ejaculate from both her father and brother, while her mother received it from her brother. Trent's family members also became involved in the scheme, with each receiving ejaculate from various sources and reciprocating with their own bodily fluids. Following the staged sexual acts, Stan, Jack, Tom, and the prostitutes vandalized the lounge, destroying property and creating a scene of debauchery. They strategically placed fake emails implying an incestuous gathering and then used a powerful suction source to remove the gas from the room. The manager of the lounge, acting under Will's instruction, called the police to report the vandalism and debauchery. Will remained on hand to support the manager's story, while Stan, Jack, Tom, and the prostitutes made their escape, leaving behind a chaotic scene for the authorities to discover. By the time the police arrived at the lounge, most of the guests had regained their senses and were hastily trying to locate their clothing. The discovery of one of the crumpled incest party emails by a CSI sent the manager into a rage, demanding prosecution for both vandalism and debauchery. CSI personnel collected swabs from all the male and female genitalia, cataloging the evidence before allowing the guests to dress and taking them into custody. The story somehow made its way to local media outlets, spreading across the internet with accompanying photographs. Despite claims of innocence regarding the emails and texts traced back to Debbie's devices and the visible bodily secretions, the authorities remained unconvinced. Debbie, Trent, and their relatives faced humiliation and job loss, in addition to a lawsuit from the lounge for damages totaling $25,000. Except for Debbie, who chose to go to trial, the others accepted misdemeanor charges of vandalism and debauchery. They were fined, ordered to contribute to the lounge's repair costs, placed on probation, and registered as sex offenders. Debbie's trial resulted in a harsher sentence due to her perceived role as the ringleader, with a $20,000 fine, 2 years in jail, for years of probation, and sex offender registration. Stan distanced himself from Debbie, proceeding with his divorce during her incarceration. Trent's misfortune continued when he was mugged and assaulted, with suspicions pointing to Stan despite alibis provided by Will and his employees placing Stan elsewhere. Shortly after the arrests, the four friends reconvened at Bronson Commercial Realty. Stan, overwhelmed with gratitude, became emotional, prompting lighthearted banter from Will to lift his spirits. That was undoubtedly one of the most repulsive situations we've ever dealt with, Jack groaned, but it turned out to be more successful than we dared hope. The group didn't delve into the gruesome details of their assistance to Stan as much as they had with previous endeavors, largely due to the disturbing nature of the events. Tom, once again, steered the conversation towards their next steps. "All right, let's focus on helping Jack now," Tom asserted. "Here's my plan." But Jack interjected, insisting on updating them on the current situation first. "Sure, go ahead," Tom agreed. As you all know, it's been over a month since we began, and I couldn't conceal my emotions well enough. Audrey started feeling uneasy around me, especially when I'd call her to check her whereabouts if I suspected she was up to something. After turning down her advances for the umpteenth time, she tearfully asked, "What's wrong, Jack?" I sarcastically replied, "I don't know, Audrey, you're supposed to be smart, figure it out." Then I left and went to the guest room. The next day, she told me she was going to see a therapist for her issues and pleaded with me not to divorce her. When I responded, "You really do need help, you crazy woman," she broke down in tears, Jack recounted. The other three listened intently. Later that day, I received a call informing me that she had been admitted to a mental health facility. She's still there and undergoing therapy. If it turns out she has a mental illness, I have to stand by her. I vowed for better or worse when we married, and our daughter needs her. Our daughter has been struggling ever since Audrey went into the hospital last week, Jack solemnly shared. After a somber silence, Tom rose from his seat, approached Jack, and embraced him. "What do you need from us, Jack?" Tom inquired. "For now, just your moral support until I meet with the doctors next week," Jack replied, his eyes welling up. "What's your insurance situation like?" Will asked. "I'm not sure how much it'll cover, but we do miss her income since she's on unpaid leave," Jack murmured. Will signaled for his assistant and instructed her to have the director of Bronson Commercial Realty issue Jack a check for $50,000. "I can't accept this," Jack protested. "You need to," Stan intervened, placing a reassuring hand on Jack's. "If any of us could have saved our marriages, we would have," Tom added. "I'm not wealthy, but I'm more than willing to contribute $5,000 myself." "Count me in too," Will chimed in. "Please accept it." In the end, things took an unexpected turn for the four friends, but they found their way to a positive outcome. Jack remained married to Audrey. Her mental health struggles stemmed from a combination of post-pregnancy changes in her body and a misprescribed medication from a now-disgraced doctor. Once properly diagnosed, her treatment was straightforward, and within 3 months, she returned to her normal self. They now have a 5-year-old son and are happily married. Tom gained sole custody of his daughters after the divorce. Amy struggled with her situation, never moving in with her former lover, Jeremy. She became consumed with her circumstances, including a false HIV diagnosis, which she discovered 6 months later, leading to the loss of her job. She moved 1,500 miles away and has only seen her daughters 3 times in the last 3 years, although she calls about once a month. Tom maintains politeness during their conversations, but cuts her off if she starts complaining. After finalizing his divorce, Tom returned to the Gold Coast bar to thank Amber, who still worked there. They hit it off and now live together. Amber runs her own internet business, set up by Stan before he left town, and no longer works as a cocktail waitress. Although they have no plans to marry, they are happy together, and Amber fills the void left by Amy's absence, providing compassionate support to Tom's daughters, who are well-adjusted teenagers. Will moved on to another wife after his divorce, although not as glamorous as Julie. Despite being ordinary, she is devoted to Will, making him happy. His bullet wound prompted him to adopt a healthier lifestyle, leading to a 30-pound weight loss and improved overall well-being. The fallout from the Julie situation was handled privately, with no adverse effects on his family. Stan couldn't shake his fascination with Julie, visiting her regularly in jail. Surprisingly, they connected well, and Stan attempted to persuade Will to drop the charges against her. However, Will dismissed the idea. Despite this, Stan acted as an intermediary between Will, Julie, and the district attorney, brokering a deal where Julie pleaded guilty to misdemeanors, receiving a sentence of time served and 10 years of probation with specific conditions, including accepting only half of her entitlement in the divorce settlement and agreeing to certain behavioral restrictions. Stan's financial assistance for their activities ultimately cost him only a few $1,000s, thanks to the deal with Julie's prenup. After their divorces were finalized, Stan and Julie married and moved 2,000 miles away with the probation officer's approval for video conferencing check-ins. Their sexual compatibility is unparalleled, with their relationship characterized by frequent and passionate intimacy, turning every occasion into a celebration of their connection. All four men cherished the twist of fate that brought them together at the Gold Coast bar, recognizing it as a transformative moment that significantly improved their lives. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.